I don't remember exactly when it was, but this guy came up with this statement that if your grandmother wouldn't know what it is, you probably shouldn't be eating it. The theory being that, and if there are any weird looking words on their chemical names or whatever it is, your grandma should know whether they're good or bad. And if she doesn't recognize them, that makes them bad. Now, coming from my generation, my grandma was born in like in the early 1900s. Like I don't know exactly when she was born. Maybe in the 1910s, I would guess. So also she was not well educated. She married my grandfather when she was quite young, and it was kind of an elopement kind of thing, I think. But it was certainly something that was a bit scandalous at that time. And yeah, so she would definitely not have known a lot of the things that are on food labels. Even back in the 1970s, 1980s, it would have been something where, oh, do you know what thiamine is? How about riboflavin? What about, oh, I don't know, cyanocobalamin? And she would say, I don't know what those are. They sound dangerous. Because this guy's theory is if grandma doesn't know, they're not good for you. What I just named were three vitamins that you need in your diet. Yeah. So just because you don't recognize something on a label doesn't mean it's safe or not safe. And if your grandma, especially if your grandma was born before women's liberation happened and women started to get good educations, then you can't rely on your grandma. And if you're in my generation, Gen X, let alone the boomers, and even some of the Gen Y people, um, I suppose there are probably some Gen Z or millennials or whatever you guys are called. I don't know. There are definitely going to be some amongst those groups also who have grandparents who are from that era before, probably around the 1970s, when a lot of women were not very well educated. Even though there were as many of them that were really super smart as there were men who were super smart. I mean, it's the difference being that you can be smart, but you may not have a good education. That's the problem. So you cannot look at an ingredients list and say, well, I don't know what these things are. Maybe you didn't pay attention in science class. Maybe you didn't get a good education. Maybe you had a homeschooling education, and your parents were one of those people, one of those couples who felt like, oh well, we don't want them to get too heavily into the science stuff because there's a lot of it that conflicts with our religious beliefs and blah 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 blah. And so there were things that were kind of skipped or glossed over. Um, and there are other reasons why you might not know. You may just not have an interest in learning about what's good for health and what's bad for health. I have an interest in that, but a lot of people don't. And it's not exactly the easiest thing to do. Some people just lack the resources, lack the skills, lack the knowledge, lack the intelligence even to do what I do. And I'm not saying I'm always right. I'm not saying that the sources that I look to for guidance are always right. But I am saying that you cannot look at the label and say, well, this is bad because I don't know what these ingredients are. I mean, what is sodium bicarbonate? Baking soda. So please try to educate yourself. If you're not sure what to do, ask for help. But don't go on this fallacious idea that just because you don't know what an ingredient is, it's bad for your health. Especially if it's a chemical. There are lots of chemicals that we need, and they don't use the common names like vitamin B or whatever it is. They use the chemical names, and that creates confusion. But they have to because, like for example, cyanocobalamin is not the only source of vitamin B12. So if they write vitamin B12 and they don't also write which source it is, and also, oh, and just for your reference, just because it has cyano doesn't mean it's dangerous. It's perfectly safe. So wisen up and learn about what's in your food. Thanks for watching and have a great day.